This is CBC Here and Now.
I'm here at the Municipalities conference in Corner Brook, where many local leaders are talking about major safety issues in their communities. Bad roads, poor cell service.
Rural Newfoundland is definitely not being done justice to.
But will these issues ever get addressed? I'll find out.
Well, more and more of us are waking up to the white stuff. Looks like it's Eastern Newfoundland's turn this weekend.
About a week after more than 100 Afghan refugees arrived here in St. John's, a big donation is coming their way. That's just ahead.
Good evening and welcome to Here and Now. I'm Anthony Germain.
And I'm Carolyn Stokes. We start with the latest on the province's healthcare hack. 5 days after critical health systems went down, we now have some good news. One of the key systems is back up and running, and cancer care will resume. Here and Now's Peter Cowan has details from our newsroom. So Peter, what do we know about the systems that are back online?
Well, officials continue to be fairly tight-lipped about exactly which systems are coming back, but Here Now has learned that Meditech, the system that holds patient records in the hospital, is back, at least mostly or in parts. Anyway, an internal memo obtained by CBC says they were able to restore the system using backups from Saturday, but the system isn't connected to other systems. So, for example, it doesn't talk to the system that stores x-rays and other medical images. Eastern Health put out a statement confirming only that its email system has been restored. It says work is ongoing and it will be a gradual process as we continue efforts to restore full functionality.
The core systems around connectivity and email, I think that was the aim to do that first. There are other modules that will roll out over the course of the next, well, until we're back to normal. And quite frankly, those will be done stepwise, be checked as they go. Really don't want to go backwards. We prefer to go forward slowly than have to go backwards again.
Okay, so with some of those main computer systems coming back, what does that mean about the capacity of the healthcare system? Well, the health minister was a bit vague about the impact on service, and we haven't received any updates from the health authorities today about what is or isn't going ahead tomorrow, but we're told not to expect a big change. The focus is going to continue on being mostly providing emergency or urgent care. So there is some good news, though, on cancer treatments. They are going to resume as of tomorrow, the health minister announced today.
They've worked diligently with the oncologists who have been now in a position to identify those appointments that are cancelled, that they feel are really timely. Those individuals are going to be contacted over the coming hours, and my understanding is chemotherapy will start tomorrow for those individuals and continue through the weekend, and then there'll be a sort of cumulative catch-up.
Now, one person we haven't been hearing from on this cyber attack is the Premier. He hasn't been in the House of Assembly all week because instead he's been in Scotland at meetings there to deal with climate change. The opposition made that an issue today in question period. The Deputy Premier insists, though, that even though he's not physically here, he is still very much involved.
The Premier is offering tweets instead of leadership. The Premier is trying to increase his online clout rather than speak directly to the people of this province and show leadership during this healthcare. I asked the Deputy Premier, do you think sending 2 tweets is sufficient public communications for the Premier?
I think the Premier is showing strong and incredible leadership during these unprecedented times. That's why we're making progress on restoring access to IT services.
So when is the Premier going to be back? His office says he's on his way back to the province right now. Anthony?
All right, thank you, Peter. That's Peter Cowan reporting live from our newsroom. Well, to other stories now. Steve Bragg has been sentenced to life in prison. The man responsible for Victoria Head's violent death 4 years ago was sentenced this afternoon. Here now's Terry Roberts reports.
Justice Donald Burridge showed mercy today for Stephen Bragg, sentencing the 39-year-old Mount Pearl man to life in prison, but setting his eligibility for parole at 10 years, the minimum allowed under the Criminal Code of Canada.
In handing down his sentence, Justice Burridge said there are times when good people do bad things. He believes that was the case when a drug-abusing Stephen Bragg strangled Victoria Head with a bootlace 4 years ago. Her body was found in a field off Oxen Pond Road on November 11, 2017. Bragg initially denied any involvement and fled the province. But after years of investigation and court appearances, Bragg pleaded guilty to second-degree murder in May.
Justice Burridge says he believes Stephen Bragg's remorse is sincere, that he's a good candidate for rehabilitation, and that the sentence handed down here today sends a strong enough message of denunciation and deterrence to others.
Bragg was described as a productive member of society, a good husband and father, but that he spiraled into a life of drugs and risky living following his failed marriage. An audible gasp went up in the courtroom from Victoria Head's family following the sentencing. Her father criticized the judge's decision and the description given of his daughter's killer.
For myself personally, I'm not happy with the decision. Like, to me, when the judge was talking about Mr. Bragg's and his behavior and his life, he stopped short of making him a saint. I mean, there was nothing said about Victoria's life, about how she was succeeding and how she succeeded in life. And like, why did it take him so long to come forward and put us through 4 years of misery? And he could have just admitted it 2 years ago. Here we are now, 7 days to the anniversary of her death again, you know, which is hard on the family. You know, I mean, I'm not getting much younger.
Bragg's defense team said there were no winners in today's outcome, but believe the sentence is the right one.
It's not going to be an easy time. 10 years is not an easy sentence in federal institutions, and hopefully he'll become a productive member of the society. From my perspective, I'm pleased, I guess, that we're able to present that and have the judge make a decision on the basis of all the facts.
Justice Burridge said Victoria Head's death was a brutal, senseless act. He went on to say Bragg has good potential for future success.
But that's cold comfort for the Head family, who say they'll be visiting Victoria's grave this evening. Terry Roberts, CBC News, St. John's.
Well, still with news from the courts, a teacher from Harbour, Maine denies having any sexual encounters with a former student, calling her claims pure fantasy. 39-year-old Noel Strapp was cross-examined today. He's accused of sexual assault and sexual exploitation. The complainant says the two had about 100 sexual interactions, which happened at school, Strapp's home, and in his car. Strapp denies this, but acknowledges he was a significant part of the young woman's life as a coach, a teacher, and a close friend. Strapp says she regularly visited his home and spent time with his wife and children. The two exchanged thousands of text messages. In provincial court today, Strapp asserted he and his former student were rarely alone. Closing arguments are expected tomorrow. Well, in national news, Canada's new defense minister says the civilian justice system will handle the investigation and prosecution of sexual misconduct cases in the military. The military has traditionally policed its own members. The military has dealt with several recent sexual misconduct investigations. Almost a dozen current and former senior leaders have been sidelined, investigated, or forced into retirement in the past 9 months. Among those is retired General Jonathan Vance and Admiral Art MacDonald. Retired Supreme Court Justice Louise Arbour is advising Ottawa on a reporting system that would best restore trust in the military. That review started in April and is expected to last about a year.
Well, it looks like the forecast panned out last night on the west coast. Snowy start to the day. This shot was taken by Tony in Massey Drive. I mean, if you love snow, you loved waking up to this morning. It did not last long, though. Temperatures were hovering around 0 degrees this morning, and then this afternoon bumped up quite nicely for the west coast into the single digits on the plus side of the mercury. 6 degrees in Corner Brook, 8 in Stephenville, reaching those double digits again for the eastern areas of the island. St. John's, Cape Race, 10, 11 degrees today. And if we take a look at what's happening, an area of low pressure did move through. I'll zoom in a little bit just to show you. You could see it this afternoon as it rolled through. And behind that, though, the clearing skies for the west coast. Same thing for eastern areas of the island, and then those windy conditions as well. But we're keeping an eye on this area of low pressure here to the south. That is going to move in and potentially bring some snow for parts of eastern Newfoundland, already prompting a special weather statement. I'll get into all those details when I come back.
Thanks, Ashley. Well, Husky is facing new charges related to a 3-year-old oil spill, the largest in Newfoundland and Labrador's history. Back in 2018, an estimated 250,000 liters of crude oil leaked into the ocean from a flow line to the Sea Rose FPSO. Now, Environment and Climate Change Canada is charging Husky under the Fisheries and Migratory Birds Convention Act. There's a $100,000 mandatory minimum fine for anyone found guilty under those acts. The penalty when committed by a corporation is no more than $200,000. Last month, the CNLOPB also laid charges against Husky. The groups ran parallel investigations. Husky is due in court later this month.
The poor cell service, bad roads, and conflicts on councils, those are just some of the issues getting attention at this year's Municipalities Conference. Local leaders are in Corner Brook this week, not just to swap stories, but also to get answers from the provincial government. Here now's Colleen Connors reports.
No money, we were at the limit.
Talks heated up at the normally chilly Corner Brook Civic Centre as mayors and councillors took the mic. Rural community leaders say they are constantly pushing the province for support. Like this mayor, who says his request for better roads is always ignored.
We have seen absolutely no action from the province, though we've given them numerous requests. We're following their process for trying to get it done. We can't even get as minor as ditching.
This new Fogo Island councillor says just 25% of his town has cell coverage, and there is no air ambulance service available.
Rural Newfoundland is not being done justice to. I tell you that right now.
But if the same issues are brought forward every year, is anything ever really resolved? Municipalities Newfoundland and Labrador says yes.
Events like this are so important because we have the attention of the provincial government. We have all the departments who are engaged. They are here at our events. They're sitting in on our sessions. They're listening. They're hearing it firsthand from our membership.
For many in this large arena, their role on council is not a full-time job or a paid one. Since 2017, Municipal Affairs has been working on a code of conduct for all municipalities to address conflict of interests, behavior, and harassment. The act would establish penalties for councillors who violate it.
So seeing how important it was to our councillors, we wanted to get it out as fast as we could to ensure that this tool is there for councillors and mayors and staff who do great work to run our communities. And if we can give them that extra piece of support, then that's our intention. We want to be there to allow them to have that, to make decisions that are best for their communities.
Many here are happy to see the act in place, especially the mandatory training for all councillors and staff. Well, mayors and councillors have a few more days to have their major issues addressed. The conference continues into the weekend. Then they bring what they've learned back home. And as for the Code of Conduct legislation, well, that should all be implemented in a little over a year's time. Colleen Connors, CBC News, Corner Brook.
Well, it's a busy time for the Association for New Canadians, helping more than 100 Afghan refugees settle into a new life in St. John's.
The group arrived in the province just last week, and one local union is chipping in a big way. Here now's Enrica Wilhelm has the details.
A big check for a big donation, $30,000, made by local union 1620 electrical workers to the Association for New Canadians.
It's come from the membership. They're ecstatic, actually. Everybody's behind it. Certainly it's a large amount of money, but we understand that it will support a family of 4, so at least for 1 year anyway. So it's going to the right place for the right reason.
Not very often do you get a donation of this magnitude. This is a really incredibly generous donation.
The money is for the ANC's private sponsorship of refugees program, which helps Afghans already in the province bring their relatives here as well. The money will also help an Afghan family of 4 during their first year in the province.
My goodness, this money, it may take someone years to raise the amount of money to sponsor family members. So this money will mean that is expedited completely and the process can be put in place almost immediately. So that's incredibly meaningful.
116 refugees came to St. John's at the end of October, fleeing the Taliban.
They're starting a new life. They've landed on a new land, in a new country. On a new continent, so I can't even imagine what that must feel like.
We're supporting a lot of people right now in the community. Many of the people who came in, along with the group of 116 recent arrivals, they didn't have a lot of belongings with them. My years involved with this organization. Anytime there's a major resettlement effort, Newfoundland and Labradorians are incredibly generous. Our doors are blowing off for the amount of clothing that's been dropped off, and just people willing to help and volunteer.
The ANC will now determine which Afghan refugee family will receive the donation, and the organization is still accepting individual donations. It doesn't have to be $30,000 though. They say every donation, big or small, counts and helps the refugees get settled here. Henrike Wilhelm, CBC News, St. John's.
Well, like a lot of Newfoundlanders and Labradorians, I'm kicking the tires on some electric vehicles. Is it the right vehicle for me? Is it the right vehicle for you? Not normal to be able to do this.
His garage is his second home. John Perrell is 65 years a mechanic. Our season debut, Sunday at 11:30 and Monday at 7.
Well, before we get to the weather, some people in the province were hoping to see the northern lights over the weekend.
Yeah, a solar storm was supposed to make them a little bit more visible further south, but that didn't pan out on the weekend. But last night, the Northern Lights put on some show. Take a look at this. That a treat for sure for those of you that can see them. It's a little dark there, but Brendan Gould shared this. Yeah, there you go. So now you're starting to see the pinks and the greens there. Great shot. This is in Port au Choix. Isn't that a great shot?
Yeah, the Point Rich Lighthouse. Just beautiful.
Definitely a treat. There you go.
Yeah.
Oh, stunning. I miss them so much.
On my bucket list to see those in person.
Yeah, that
One
is
of these days.
One of these days. It's definitely worth looking out. Even tonight, though, there is a chance we could see them, certainly up through Labrador. I'd say maybe a little bit further south. The solar storm is winding down a little bit, but that chance is still out there. So if you want to go out and look under clear skies tonight, certainly a good night to do so. Taking a look at the current temperatures up across Labrador on the cool side, though, hovering around 0, -2, -3 tonight, and then we've got those, or this evening rather, and then those temperatures into the single digits. So we've dropped quite a bit in St. John's, down to about 5 degrees this evening right now. So what we have going on is an area of high pressure to the south over the Maritimes, and then that area of low pressure that moved through today. Bringing some pretty gusty winds to the eastern areas of the island, gusting upwards about 70, some exposed areas seeing 80 kilometers per hour. That low has moved off, and those winds are going to continue to ramp down as we head through the evening hours tonight. And not a whole lot going on tonight weather-wise. On the west coast, we could potentially see some showers and then change over to the potential for some flurries as we head through the evening hours tonight for areas through the west coast. And then up across Labrador, you're looking at that chance of flurries again for Lab West, maybe even northern portions as well. Extreme northern portions could see some flurries tonight. Otherwise, not a whole lot going on. Clear skies for the most part for the east and central as we get into the morning hours, maybe a few showers down through the Burin Peninsula. Temperatures tonight will be into the single digits, 2-3 degrees down along southern areas of the island. As you head further north, those temperatures will likely dip below zero, hover near or just below zero, with those winds out of the southwest about 10 to 20 kilometers per hour. And again, that potential for some flurries overnight for most of the west coast, particularly in the higher elevation. Shouldn't wake up to what you woke up to this morning, but that chance still there. Lab City going down to -9 tonight. Those winds out of the southwest about 20 to 30 kilometers per hour, so a bit of a wind chill in play as well for you. As we head through tomorrow, watching the next weather maker move in, likely going to see some showers or flurries in the morning hours along the west coast. Same thing up across Labrador as far as flurries go. And then as we head through the afternoon, clouds will be on the increase. So the first half of the day is actually going to start fairly nice. We should see a mix of sun and cloud through the day, and then those clouds will move in. And this is ahead of our next weather maker that is prompting that special weather statement for the Avalon at this point. Looks like rain should start into the late afternoon, early evening hours, say 5, 6 o'clock. By 7 o'clock, those temperatures are going to dip down. Some of the models picking up the potential for some wet snow overnight. Now, the elevation is going to play a huge role in how much precipitation falls. So just want to kind of show you the map, the elevation map, I should say, of the Avalon. So in those higher elevations, you'll more than likely see the snow. As you get towards the surface, say downtown areas more than likely won't see any snow. If you do, it'll be a wet snow, but it shouldn't accumulate too much. So that should be the story as we head through the overnight. Likely a trace, maybe 2 centimeters of snow, but in those higher elevations, we could see somewhere between 2 to 5 centimeters. Now, if things change tomorrow, I'll definitely let you know, but at this point, that's what it's looking like, and this will continue through Saturday morning, and then we should see some clearing skies into the afternoon. So tomorrow, temperatures will be above zero to start, dipping as we get into this overnight, but overall about 5 to 7 degrees with those clouds on the increase. So pretty much anywhere from the Avalon through to eastern Newfoundland, all of eastern Newfoundland could see that wet snow as we head through the evening hours. Now, as we head through central, flurries to start potentially for the Grand Falls, Windsor area, and then you should actually see some sunshine as the day goes on. Similar forecast as you head towards the west coast. 5-6 degrees is your daytime highs, so similar to what we're seeing today. Some sunshine for the northern peninsula and southeastern Labrador. Your winds will be out of the southwest, about 20 to 40 kilometers per hour, and those single-digit temperatures as well. And then as we head towards northern or western Labrador anyway, Lab City -3. Chance of flurries will still continue. Those winds will be about 30 to 50 kilometers per hour tomorrow, and then hovering near or around 0 for the rest of the Big Land. So that's a look at tomorrow's forecast. We'll look through the weekend when I come back.
One thing that I've universally heard from everyone that's working in healthcare, they're dealing with multiple meetings at once. They're dealing with multiple tasks at once.
Why are healthcare networks being targeted by cyber attackers? An expert weighs in coming up.
Welcome back to Here Now. A big story of the week, healthcare operations grinding down because of the cyber attack. Well, having online information revert back to pen and paper is part of all that. The nurses union says members are pulling together to get through what is now literally manual labor. Nurses are helping out on units that they don't normally staff to try to keep everything moving. Union President Yvette Coffey says it's been difficult.
This is adding another element of stress and another challenge in the system. I'm sure when we do a post-mortem on this at the end, we will hear more from our members, but for right now, they're busy doing the work that has to be done.
Well, as the province grapples with a cyber attack on the healthcare system, we're looking at why hackers specifically target healthcare networks. Lee Kim is the Director of Privacy and Security with the Healthcare Information and Management Systems Society, and she's joining us now from Pittsburgh. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you very much.
So let's start with the why. Why is healthcare a target for cyber attacks?
We typically tend to be very much under-resourced as an industry, as a sector. Unfortunately, there are relatively small budgets that are used to fund our healthcare systems generally. And as a result, the dollars that we could spend in terms of upgrading our infrastructure and upgrading our security solutions, those dollars are fairly in short supply. As a result, we're somewhat limited in terms of what we can do. And I would also say that we also have a culture of wanting to help others. And so our sense of trust as well is very strong. So in terms of compromises by way of phishing or other cyber attacks, we may be somewhat more vulnerable than other sectors in terms of that level of trust outwardly as well.
And how does something like this work? You know, we've all heard about phishing scams designed to trick people into giving out their personal information, but how could something like phishing take down an entire healthcare network? Could someone just like click a link or download an attachment to open the door for that kind of large-scale cyber attack?
From our industry research, we find that by and large, phishing tends to be a reason, but you know, it can be sometimes it's a combination of, and this is just all hypothetical, right? Because we absolutely don't know. It could have been an employee or a contractor, someone, let's say, on the inside that may innocently have clicked on a poison link or maybe opened up a malicious attachment, and maybe havoc may have occurred. Sometimes too, though, I'm not saying it's the case in this case because I absolutely don't know. I plead ignorance. But in terms of third parties and vendors that we trust, I mean, just like in our personal and professional lives, right? There's someone outside of our organization that we trust and they say, oh, it's so-and-so, okay. And so our guard is down. We've seen these phishers, these attackers, from time to time compromise third parties and send legitimate emails from those third parties to us. So I'd have to say that at times when we see, you know, emails or communication from a trusted source, shall we say, even outside of our organization, our guard may be lower. And as a result, you know, it could be a compromise for the vendor to send that, you know, real email from them to us. And of course, our email system may perhaps trust emails coming from that domain. And the employee, I mean, especially in COVID-19, the one thing that I've universally heard from everyone that's working in healthcare is that and other sectors, frankly, is that they're dealing with multiple meetings at once. They're dealing with multiple tasks at once, right? So their attention is truly divided. And does that open the door for phishing? Possibly. Does that open the door to less discernment or critical thinking about what's going on? Possibly.
And I think some folks are also wondering, why us? You know, we're a small province, just over 500,000 people living here. What do hackers look for when choosing a target?
It's fairly well known that smaller entities may sometimes have weaker controls in place. They may be less robust in terms of their infrastructure and how up-to-date things are. That's sometimes the case. I have to say, though, that it really depends. organizations, regardless of size and regardless of what it may seem, I think that it's a real credit to the province that they are getting up and running within days as opposed to being compromised for weeks. I think that's a wonderful testament to their business continuity and disaster recovery plan. Not every organization or entity, public or private sector, is like that.
Lee Kim, thank you so much for sharing your expertise on this.
Thank you.
Well, the UK has become the first country in the world to approve Merck's COVID-19 antiviral pill. Now, it's the first oral antiviral treatment for the illness to get the green light. Data released last month suggests it could cut some COVID patients' chances of dying or being hospitalized by half. One Canadian expert says the benefits of this are twofold.
At the end of the day, if you can stop people from needing to go into hospital, then that actually both obviously helps that individual patient as well as helps the healthcare system.
Oh, the company has submitted preliminary data about the drug to Health Canada, but there is no timeline yet for a decision. Merck is also looking to distribute the antiviral in other parts of the world and has said it will adjust prices for the drug based on a nation's ability to pay. Well, as many as 1/3 of people who have recovered from COVID-19 suffer from brain fog. It means they've got problems with memory, concentration, as well as executive brain function. Research is now providing answers about how the brain is affected and for how long. Vicadopia has more.
Since recovering from COVID-19 last year, Sonia Malley still suffers crushing fatigue and says her mind is trapped in a fog.
I'm a fraction of the person I was before.
Malley can't focus, struggles to remember, and has lost the creativity that inspired her art.
Sort of like trying to trudge through neck-deep sludge, except mentally. You're tired, you're confused.
In New York, researchers studied a diverse group of recovered COVID patients with in-person cognitive tests, usually reserved for those who've had a stroke or concussion.
We did see cognitive impairment, which was in excess of what we would expect for this population, specifically, this fairly young cohort.
Almost 8 months after being treated for COVID, 23% still had problems with memory recall, 24% struggled with forming new memories, and 18% had impaired mental processing speed. Hospitalized patients were most likely to be affected. The results are similar to the experiences of patients who've spent a lot of time in intensive care before the pandemic.
Some studies have identified a subset that still has cognitive impairment over 5 years post-illness, but we just don't know that with COVID right now.
Scientists still can't identify the cause of brain fog, but autopsies reveal evidence of particles of the coronavirus, as well as damage similar to what's seen in strokes.
I think we're starting to get a sense of what the risks of each of those are and how much each are contributing, but I don't think it's going to be any one thing only.
No clear answer means no clear treatment.
Nobody knows what's going to happen to any of us. It's just kind of everyone's hanging on hope at this point.
And a life sidelined. Vicadopia, CBC News, Toronto.
It's telling you to put pressure on the steering wheel, right? It wants to make sure you're still alive.
So do I. No hands on Kenmount Road? Normally, I wouldn't recommend it.
Are you considering an electric car? Well, Anthony gets a crash course.
Great choice of words, Carolyn. Welcome back to Here and Now. Well, as you know, electronic vehicles, a lot of talk about them these days, especially with fuel prices being what they are. Jeremy Bernardin is the boss here. So what have you got on the go here, Jeremy?
Well, we've got a whole suite of electric vehicles that are available for the public for purchase, but we also offer information sessions to the public. So when consumers want to know more, they can come to us, and we host these free information sessions called Which EV is Right for Me?
Okay, so I'm kind of wondering which EV is right for me, but I have to say I'm a little bit skeptical. I'm thinking, I want a vehicle that's going to get me to Goobies and back, which is a bit of a drive. What do you say to people thinking, no, the technology is not there to get me as far as I want to go?
We hear that quite often, and the good news is Newfoundland has actually a really nice infrastructure for fast charging across the province on the Trans-Canada Highway. So getting to Corner Brook it's quite easy now. And there's another application for installing 19 more fast chargers. But at the end of the day, it's 85 to 90% of your charging is done at home, and you wake up every single day with a full battery. And if we look at the car right behind you, you're saying, do these cars go far enough? I mean, it's 415 kilometer charge. You gotta remember, every single morning you have the ability to do 415 kilometers. So it's only on days that you're going really far that you would ever think about using a fast charging station. And for those days, we're lucky here that we do have really good infrastructure.
Now, 415 is sort of like in the Anthony range. I'm not sure how many Newfoundlanders you've met yet, but there are a lot of people who do, like St. John's to Port aux Basques, like big drives. Is that customer going to have to wait a few more years for the technology to catch up? Or do they have to find some strategy to go, okay, I'm going to go this far, sleep at my brother-in-law's place, charge up overnight, and then keep going?
Thankfully, we have fast chargers. So if you're going quite far, you're going to Port aux Basques, you'd wake up in the morning with a full charge, you'd take off, and you time your washroom breaks, you time your coffee breaks, your eating breaks with charging, and these cars charge up really quickly, right? You're looking at adding about, if I'm using rough figures here, but 300 kilometers of range added per hour it stops. So you wouldn't stop and fully charge, you would top up just enough to get to the next, stretch or your next destination. So you'd end up doing a couple little stops on your way to Port aux Basques, but it's a lot easier than you think.
Okay. As far as the other models go, I guess one thing people look at the government, which has some rebates because they're trying to encourage us to stop burning fuel. When you're sort of talking to people who are thinking of an EV, you're obviously a good salesman. So what's the pitch to get people to make the switch without meaning to rhyme as if I'm some sort of bad ad guy?
Well, I think first of all, people just need to try it. Without understanding it and getting behind the wheel, it's really hard to make that decision and even get behind the whole idea. So it's important to just try it. And what really sells the vehicle is the driving experience. It's a superior experience. It drives better, it's more exciting, it's responsive.
So there's a feature called autopilot, right? Yeah. You want to explain this autopilot to me? Well, how does this work?
So essentially autopilot, there's cameras all around the vehicle and there's sensors all around the vehicle that are looking to see where your car's positioned, and if it's safe to do so, it'll engage the autopilot.
Right.
And essentially the car will drive itself. Now, it's not an invitation to take a nap and fall asleep, but it's actually really nice on long drives. It'll take, highway off ramps, it'll control the curves and all of that, right. But you're supposed to have your hands on the wheel. It's just an assisted system. If you take your hands off the wheels for too long, it'll tell you to get your hands back on.
Let go.
So if it slows down, if there's a stop, it will immobilize this car, so you don't have to worry about that.
Okay, but what about if that car brakes in front of me?
Oh yeah, it'll slow down for sure. It actually has a sensor.
So I don't have to do anything right now, even though he's braking?
Yeah, well, yeah, totally. It's keeping its distance.
What about the green light and the red light?
If it turns red and the car is going to run that red light, you need to immobilize the car.
This is really not normal to be able to do this. On Kenmount Road, of all roads.
So it's telling you to put pressure on the steering wheel, right? It wants to make sure you're still alive.
So do I. People can come here on Saturday. Is that when you're doing your next? Is this EV right for me?
Yeah, so which EV is right for me? It's going to be here at 9 Kiwanis Street, just off of Kelsey Drive, and it's going to be at 9 a.m. on Saturday. Please send us a message on our Facebook or through our website just to make sure that we
no purchase necessary, right?
That's correct. No purchase, and you get to go behind the wheel and test drive them right after.
All right. I think I'm going to give that a whirl. Thanks a lot.
Pleasure. Thanks for having me.
Well, staying with e-transportation, Windsor, Ontario is described as a car-centric city, not unlike many parts of this province. Well, its council is trying to change that. They've scattered e-scooters across Windsor. It's part of a pilot project to cut back on greenhouse gas emissions. As the CBC's Jennifer Lagrassa reports, residents and businesses are already on board.
This is changing the way Windsor operates. 6 months into a year-long pilot project, businesses here are saying that this is helping them feel connected to the city and helping their bottom line.
What would normally be an hour walk from the downtown was only about 15 minutes, saving riders on money and time and opening up food, drink, and shop options.
We really rely on ways to draw people from, Walkerville and from downtown over to this area, and I think the scooter is that bridge.
I think this is part of a larger conversation of how we reimagine urban transportation to support, businesses and older commercial sectors of the city. Definitely a car-centric city, but it may be a car-centric city because the city was designed in that way. But I think when you give people the option of, again, reimagining how they use their urban spaces, you'll see a lot of people wanting to get on bikes or scooters or skateboards.
And the metrics show exactly that. Windsor users have the longest average ride time in Canada, spending more than 25 minutes scooting around. More than 135,000 rides have been completed, many from repeat users.
One business owner I spoke with said that when they closed the street for pedestrians, there were quite a few scooters here on Erie Street. And it was a similar story over in the West End.
One business owner told me it's easy for Sandwich Town to feel separated from the downtown. The Ambassador Bridge creates a physical barrier. With many students gone this past summer because of COVID, the area needed people to take on the distance.
It was pretty quiet with COVID until people started getting out on their bicycles. And then with the e-scooters, it just brought another dimension.
Business owners say they want to see the city continue the pilot after 1 year and hope this sparks conversations about more accessible transportation options.
The city is expecting a progress report early next year. Jennifer LaGrassa, CBC News, Windsor.
This season on Stuffed, we're trying something different. We're gonna go out and make a meal from food that we source from the environment around us.
Let's get stuffed!
When bands are interviewed, we usually hear from lead singers or guitar players. Drummers are rarely center stage, even though they often have the loudest instrument.
Yeah, so this week on For the Love of Music, we're going to flip that script and meet two of the most in-demand drummers in this province.
My name's Chuck Bucket. I'm a drummer and percussionist, and I've been living in St. John's for almost 3 years now. My dad was a professional musician, like a sideman, played guitar and bass and keys, and so I kind of grew up watching him do that, and I wanted to play guitar originally. I just wasn't really good at it. I remember it vividly, actually, the first day I held sticks and somebody was like, do this on a kit, and it came so naturally. It was an awesome day. I remember it really well still. Yeah.
Hey, I'm Dan George, and I'm a session drummer. My dad is a keys player. I kind of just was growing up around music. Just always hitting stuff. Just, pots, pans, tapping on tables.
I've played with Carolina East, Dolly Parton, Rhea May, Blue Rodeo, Garrett Mason, all over the place.
I played in a bunch of punk bands and metal bands here in town. And then one day I was kind of just like, country music's kind of cool.
Having beers with my friends, with you on the back door of my mind that night.
I've been all over the world with music, so it's kind of cool. Just like starting from like a 6-year-old saying, I want to play drums. And then like I'm going to Los Angeles, or I'm going here, or I'm going there. And it's cool, just being able to experience stuff.
My real full name is Sultan Duramshi. Years back when I started, I used to busk playing buckets. And so Chuck Bucket was a stage name. So years ago, I moved to Halifax with my best friend, Brent, play buckets. I taught him how to do this routine,
Big Halifax Drum Festival, welcome to the Junk Beats, guys.
He had an Uncle Buck that he was like, always thought was cool. And I was obsessed with Chuck Norris. So we were Chuck Bucket and Buck Chuckett, and we had a bucket duo. And that name just stuck. It wasn't on purpose. I didn't think I was like, everybody's gonna call me Chuck Bucket forever. But it's been, 15, 17 years now? And I've been Chuck Bucket, yeah.
The difference between just being the on-call guy or this is our show, both are still special because, when you're at your own show or you're part of a band, it's part of your family. And when you're on a call that's like you don't know any of the other players maybe or anything like that, it's still special because you're meeting new people and you make those connections, and you never know where those connections can lead you.
Yeah, drums for me, it's, I think there's two kind of approaches really to drums. There's the clinician type who's, really pushing boundaries and, it's very technical, and that's not me, I haven't really spent much time worrying about technical stuff, that doesn't interest me very much. I'm more of about setting the vibe and being part of the vibe and, holding a really nice groove, making everyone sound good, helping everyone sound good, and then, when you're really comfortable and you're in the zone, you can it's like adding icing on the cake. You can do add a little bit of flavor, and I just love that. That's my, playing with different people in different fields and pushing and pulling, and that's really, to me, what makes drumming cool and exciting. It's different every single time.
Thanks to video producer Mark Cumby for that item. You can check out more For the Love of Music on our website, Facebook, and on YouTube. And we'll have another episode on Here and Now in a couple of weeks. All right, so now it's time to have a look at the long-range forecast. Looking ahead to the weekend, I guess now. What's in store?
Well, more than likely eastern areas of the island in the higher elevations will wake up to potentially some snow on Saturday morning. Let's take a look at the future tracker there. Probably not enough to shovel, and if it is enough to shovel, you could just leave it because it's not going to hang around very long. Temperatures this weekend actually looking fairly nice, definitely on the plus side of the mercury. But as we get into Saturday afternoon, we should actually see some sunshine. So that should help melt whatever does fall through the night on Friday. Otherwise, the rest of the island looking at either partly to mostly cloudy skies through the day. Chances of some flurries and or showers up across Labrador. Again, we're looking at this unsettled pattern continuing, and it will continue through the day on right through the day on Saturday as it continues to track a little bit further east with that potential for flurries or showers right along most of the coast. And then same thing for the west coast. Some showers will linger into Saturday night and then into the beginning of Sunday morning as well as we see that onshore flow. Otherwise, not a whole lot happening as far as accumulation and or rain for the island, except up across Labrador. We could see some more rain. The best chance of seeing that rain will actually be on Sunday as those temperatures warm up quite a bit, actually. So here's Saturday's temperatures. You're hovering in and around the mid-single digits, a little cooler for the northern peninsula, 2-3 degrees, some sunshine for you on Saturday, and then between 2 to 5 degrees across most of the big land. And then as we get into Sunday, those temperatures are starting to climb up. So that's why whatever does fall should fall as rain through the afternoon. Same thing for Happy Valley, Goose Bay, 7 degrees, and then they warm up a little bit across the island between 8 and 9 degrees as the daytime highs on Sunday. After that, looks like temperatures as we get into Monday should reach double digits yet again, about 10 degrees. And then by Tuesday, we're looking at some unsettled conditions and back into the single digits, high single digits. And then for central Newfoundland, after Saturday, looking at fairly nice stretch of weather. Sunday through to Tuesday, looking at either sunshine or a mix of sun and cloud with that temperature hovering in and around 8 degrees. And then western Newfoundland, some showers on Monday, but then Tuesday looks nice at this point. 8 degrees will be your daytime high as well. For eastern Labrador, the beginning of next week looks nice with single-digit temperatures, mix of sun and cloud through the day. And then Labrador, at least western Labrador, will stay a little bit unsettled. The return of that chance of flurries or showers for Tuesday. Look at this shot. Some morning over Kitty Vidi, I know a couple people, not a couple, a lot of people shared photos today with that sky. What a great shot. Gerard shared. Gerard shared that photo. I can't pronounce names very well. Thank you so much for that. If you have any weather photos, send them to nlphotos@cbc.ca.
Time to invest in bifocals.
I know, I can't see it. It's so small. You're too young for that.
I know.
Well, that's it for us. Have a great night, everyone.
Good night.
Good night.